Modern Dadhood. Modern Dadhood podcast.
Adam, I gotta tell you, it's been a long haul to get to this moment, to hear your voice, but goddamn, I'm so glad we're here.
Well, for the listeners' benefit, we should just say that we have spent way too long battling ridiculous technical difficulties.
New year, new things to troubleshoot, is what they say.
And we're two guys who spend a lot of time on the computer and on video chats.
This is not our first rodeo here, people. Okay.
Sure felt like our first rodeo.
It's behind us now.
Here we are.
Man. And how are you? Who are you?
Well, my name's Adam Flaherty. That's who I am. One of the hosts of Modern Dadhood, this podcast. We're doing everything out of order, but that's okay because this is our first episode of 2024.
Noisemaker sound. Yay,
this is Modern Dadhood, an ongoing conversation about the joys, challenges, and general insanity of being a dad in this moment. Like I said previously, my name's Adam Flaherty. I'm a dad of two amazing daughters who are on the verge of 10 years old and 7 years old.
Crazy.
And I myself am on the verge of 41. But why don't you tell our friends listening who you are, man?
I'm on the verge of tears most days now. My name is Marc Checkett. I too am a dad. I have two children, both boys, twins, turning 6 years of age in a little over a month.
And we, despite how we might come across, are not parenting experts by any means.
Nah, not even close.
We're a couple of dinguses who enjoy being dads and enjoy learning from other dads and enjoy talking to each other about being dads, but we're not expert dads.
You know what I'm really good at, though, is drinking this beer right now.
Hey, your voice sounds a whole lot better than it did the last episode. You must be feeling better. You on the mend?
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I am feeling so much better. Listeners will know that I told a whole sob story in the last episode about how sick I've been. And I'll say this, I feel so much better. I still have a pain in and around my left lower lung lobe. So like I don't sneeze, because if I sneeze, I get a stabbing pain in my side.
So do you do that thing where you
not gone
pinch your nose when you feel one coming on?
Yeah, and I can't stand it. I hate it. It's the worst thing. Sneezing is such a great release.
Yeah.
You know? It's such a wonderful feeling to sneeze and to hold it back. Oh, God, it's just horrible.
I have discomfort when I see somebody else do that.
It's not good for anybody involved. Okay.
I grew up with a friend who did that regularly. He had bad allergies and he was sneezing all the time, and he would hold him in like that. Willie, if you're listening, I'm talking about you, man. I remember trying to do it once and I almost cried. It hurt so bad. And I said, never again will I try to hold in
Don't do it.
a sneeze. But now you're that guy.
Yeah, and I hate it. But no, thanks for asking, man. I'm getting there. I'm almost back to normal. I'm just not, there quite yet.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll never be there. Maybe that's it. Maybe this is my life now. I don't know. Can't imagine all of that's going to make it into the episode. Start.
Then you've got another thing coming.
But if it does, listen, listeners, thanks for sticking it out, because we got some good stuff in this episode. I promise.
Yeah, this is actually a great episode of Modern Dadhood. And before we tell you the format of this episode, we should say that all episodes of the podcast are available on moderndadhood.com, where you can search by things like episode topic, if there's a topic you're particularly interested in, if there is a guest that you heard maybe we had on the show in 2021 and you want to find that episode, you type that into the search box and that episode will come up. But all of our episodes are also available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Amazon Music and anywhere you can listen to podcasts. And we encourage you to go back into the back catalog, because there's some pure gold, if I can be honest about it.
I think you should be even more honest than that. Try that again.
There is some gold bullion in the back catalog of Modern Dadhood, the podcast.
There are some boulder-sized nuggets of pure uncut platinum.
Unoxidized cubic zirconia. We should also invite our listeners to please subscribe wherever you listen and leave us a review. Would you mind?
I mean,
did you tell any of your friends about the podcast at your holiday parties?
We had a specific ask. It was,
we
don't ask much, but we did ask for you to corner, I believe I said corner someone at a party. So I expect that happened. Okay.
And if the answer is no, you can still text somebody right now.
You could.
Why don't we just wait? Well, we'll hold for you while you text a friend and say, please check out Modern Dadhood.
Adam, have we spoken since Christmas?
I don't think so. I'll say that I texted you probably 24 times between Christmas and now, and I was starting to wonder if you may
did I ever text you back?
have perished.
But did you have a good Christmas with the kids?
I had a great Christmas. It was a rather low key holiday, and that was welcomed.
That's nice.
We saw family. We kids had an awesome time. We gave them some really fun gifts, including a Nintendo Switch. We brought some video games into the equation.
Into a whole new world there for your kids, huh?
We did, but it's been actually a really fun family activity.
Oh, that's nice.
I mean, I've been playing more Mario Kart than I have since 2006.
Yeah. You crushing bones? Are you showing your kids how it's done?
Oh,
or
yeah.
You hanging back a little bit, letting them feel like they...
No, I talk a lot of trash. I win almost every time.
Nice. We got the kids a bunch of Hot Wheels tracks.
Nice.
And extra boosters, new cars, all sorts of fun stuff like that. And that's kind of been our sort of go-to like family thing that we do. And it's hilarious. Like I was it yesterday? No, it was
when all your troubles seemed so far away.
So far away. No, the other day, I think I want to say I was maybe over visiting my brother for a little bit. Just he and I just had a little bro time with my brother.
Oh, Brian, actually.
The other one. So close. You caught yourself. Yeah, my brother Brian, who lives up here, and
that joke, by the way, that's a years long recurring joke.
I think it might be the longest running gag in the show. Actually.
I mean, it might even be longer than Mark Andrew.
It might be. It actually might precede. It might precede Mark Andrew. Well, anyway, I got home from hanging out with him for the afternoon, and I come in and I go to the kitchen where I see my kids and Jamie on the floor. Jamie is surrounded by this serpentine and totally badass Hot Wheels track.
Like, is it going over her back?
It's going around the back of her and like underneath things and over things. And she's all the boosters are turned on. So it's just this like whir sound that's happening. And the boys are just running back and forth. And she's got this smile on her face. And it's just it's a super fun thing to see how my wife has become this like mom to two boys who are such boys about things like cars and trucks, you know, and she just gets right in there along with them. And it's awesome to see.
I love
that. I will say I completely redesigned the track once I got home.
Well, yeah. I mean, you understand physics.
Here's the best gift though that I got. This was from Jamie.
Is it a coaster?
It's a coaster. Yeah.
Nice. I'm going to read it for the benefit of our listeners. It's a coaster and it's lime green with a electric blue border, and in a serif font it says, "Here we fucking go again. I mean, good morning."
Yeah,
I think that's pretty brilliant. Yeah, hilarious.
It's now a fixture of my desk.
That's great. All right, let's get ourselves back on track.
Come on, would you just get back on track, Adam? I'm tired of the shenanigans.
I think we should describe to our friends listening what the format of this show is, this episode is today.
This episode or the normal show?
This episode is a special one.
I think we're going to go ahead and call this a best of.
Yeah,
I think
it's
we're
like
going
a
to call it
clips
a best of
show.
Yeah,
Best of 2023.
Here's what's happened over the course of the last week and change. Adam and I have gone back in the archives. I don't know about you, but I only went back to 2023. That's what we were doing, right? Just the last year. Yeah, okay. I thought that's how that worked. Okay, great. I'm glad we covered that before we started recording tonight. We went back through the archives, 2023, listened to some of our past episodes for some of the juicier, some of the meatier, some of the more interesting, intriguing clips. And we compiled those. And we're going to go through, we're going to like a tick list. We're just going to go back and forth. And we're going to talk about some of our favorite interview moments, I guess.
I chose 3 of them and I put them in order. Is that what you did too?
I chose 3 of them and I put them in order. Is that what you did?
That's precisely what I did. So I guess we should start with number 3.
Here's what I'm going to do. You know what? I'm going to put money on.
We've got some of the same ones.
We definitely have some of the same
No
ones,
question.
but I was going to put money on our number ones being the same. But you sir surprise me sometimes. So I won't go that far. But we definitely picked. I don't know what we're going to do when that happens, but we definitely picked the same ones.
Probably
I think at least once.
Well,
Yeah.
let's find out.
Okay.
Let's find out. Why don't you go first? What's your number 3? And I would say, let's try to give, we'll give a little bit of context.
I have a little context. This probably is the most of the context.
But let me interrupt and just say we
Just do
will
it.
also link to all of these episodes in the show notes for this episode. Click on it. It'll bring you right to that episode. And if you haven't heard it, give it a listen.
Okay. Here's my number 3 pick. Okay.
Number 3.
Episode 87. Do you know it?
Not offhand.
Oh, okay. So we didn't pick the same one for this one. We interviewed a wonderful gentleman by the name of Mark Groman.
Yeah.
Yeah, great guy. He is a privacy professional, the first chief privacy officer of the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, and he served in the Obama administration. You know, I had to pick somebody that was associated with Obama, right?
Absolutely. It turns out many of our guests are connected to Barack Obama. And I actually, as often as we joke about wanting to have Obama himself on as a guest, I think it's more or less a coincidence that our guests have worked in his administration.
Coincidence or the universe bending.
Perhaps giving us a sign.
Yeah, maybe.
Go on.
That one was a 2-parter, and this episode 87 was the first part. Conversation was enlightening, but also a little frightening. We talked about devices, our kids, connection to, their friends and the online world. I learned a lot in that episode, but in this particular part of the interview, we were talking about passing notes around maybe in the classroom and getting caught when we were kids.
Yeah, sure.
And how we would be mortified because maybe the teacher would read aloud the thing in the note. And, on one side, you're maybe embarrassed, but, worst case scenario, it's bad. And the principal gets brought in and the parents get brought in. We were talking about how that's sort of a situation that we remember, but how these days, sort of equivalent of that is much more amplified. It's not relegated to just the classroom, just that week. If we make a misstep and are caught now, the repercussions could be much greater. And a lot of that's due to the connectivity and how many people you're, potentially maybe connected with. And he just had some fantastic thoughts around how we as parents can get a little bit more maybe familiar with those things, those places that our kids are spending their time. And I think it's a good place for our listeners to jump into that conversation.
Well, let's throw it to another Mark with a C.
Mm-hmm.
Mark Groman.
better analogy might be passing a note in class, which I was notorious for in high school.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. Where you write something stupid, or it's the picture of a teacher, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. And you never intend it to be disseminated or seen widely. And then the teacher grabs it, reads it to the class, whatever it is, and it lands somewhere else. But it's still not even close.
Do we get that? Do we understand that? Meaning like we, the parents who kind of remember passing notes, in a class.
No. I mean, that is, so parents really do need to understand the technology your kids are using, the platforms they're on. And I don't mean or expect parents to have to understand every nuance and every technical platform control. It's impossible. They evolve. We can't keep up. But we do need to understand at a minimum, what are the tools on a given platform? Is it group chat? Is it only one-to-one chat? Can they chat with strangers? Is it restricted to certain groups? Is it allowing for posting? Is it photographs? Is it location tracking? Those are some of the basics that's important to understand about a given app so that we can talk to our kids about it. And we can understand it and they can understand that.
Good clip, man. Good clip.
I actually had another clip that I really liked.
Tough shit.
But
because we're doing 3 each.
but I thought to myself, you idiot.
That will not fly in this format.
No, of course not.
I think that was an awesome one that you shared. My number 3 is from a gentleman named Shane Burkaw. Shane, in this clip, explains his and his wife's decision to make their private journey of trying to conceive via IVF as an interabled couple. So Shane, his whole life, he's been in a wheelchair. His wife is not physically disabled. They're trying to conceive via in vitro fertilization. I know for you and me, Mark, privacy is very important to the point that we don't even share our kids' names, regularly on this podcast. Shane and Hannah, basically everything they do is public on their YouTube channel, on their podcast. And so whether they like it or not, because they have this very public persona, that part of their life is something that people are going to know about intimately. So I really enjoyed revisiting that chat with Shane and hearing him speak again about their decision to share their life publicly.
I am certainly more open to sharing my life with the world. Hannah's not. And that's been an interesting dynamic for us from the beginning of our YouTube days. When we began YouTube, I had already been writing a popular blog sharing everything about my life for like 6 years prior to that. So that helped me become comfortable with sharing the intimate details of my life and not letting it bother me if people, had negative feedback about that. Today, we are both like very comfortable with sharing our lives online. We believe in our mission, which is to improve the way that society understands disability. And to do that, we share our honest, authentic lives with people. We believe in it and we enjoy it, but that's not to say it's not extremely hard at times. And this IVF journey was the first time that we really kind of sat down and had a serious talk about like, how are we going to handle this? Because normally in our videos, we don't like plan out what we're saying. We just pick up the camera and film whatever is on our mind at that moment. But for the IVF stuff, we were like, let's not do that because we don't want to regret it if this is really emotionally challenging for us. We don't need the 10,000 people saying, oh, you shouldn't have done this, whatever nonsense they'll come up with. So we're being very careful. We are not going to share any kind of play-by-play when we begin. We're not going to update the world on dates and all that. I think we'll do it privately, give ourselves time to experience it and process, and then document it after the fact.
Mark, what's your number 2?
My number 2 was around 7:30 this morning.
Mark.
Oh,
Mark
like what I did
Andrew,
there?
check
You like
it.
what I did there. Cut that out.
Potty
that's for
jokes
sure.
for real? Are we not beyond that stage?
No, never. All right, here. Okay, this is my number 2. In episode 91, we spoke to one Victor M. Sweeney, who, besides being a dad of 4, I believe, he is also a funeral director, a mortician, and an all-around interesting and downright great dude. This was somebody that I had first seen on the Wired YouTube channel. Does a series called Tech Support, and they've got people from all sorts of disciplines and areas of expertise talking about their thing, and they answer questions from the internet. And Victor's done it at least 2 times, maybe more.
I want to say there's 4 different Wired videos.
He's so charismatic, and it's just a world that I don't spend a whole hell of a lot of time really thinking about.
He's fun to watch. He's extremely knowledgeable.
I was just going to say,
very genuine. He's got a great sense of humor, and it's a field that there's so much mystery around that he opens up and speaks openly about.
And I'll say this with a lot of love. He looks the part too. You know, he's got the
I think he loves that.
But maybe he does. Maybe that's So we talked about a bunch of stuff. My favorite part of that episode, though, was you asked him a very simple question. The question was essentially, how do you explain death? And he not only had an answer just ready to go, he just had an amazing, thoughtful answer at the ready that I think can be understood by just about anybody, young or old, religious or not, familiar with death or not.
And if I remember, I think I asked him about it kind of in the context of when you are dealing with families where there are young kids, how do you relay the concept of death to them? But his answer makes the subject approachable to anybody.
And sometimes because that's kind of a thing, right? It's like, how would you explain that to a 5-year-old? And sometimes those things to an adult, you know, you're kind of, maybe you're kind of like, oh yeah, I get it. You know, I understand it because it's been dumbed down.
Yeah.
But, you know, we talked a little bit about how kids have this ability about them to sort of be open and, you know, ready to receive and learn sort of new and interesting things. And, you know, they don't carry with them all the baggage that we as adults kind of carry into so many situations. And so it's harder for us to have that kind of beginner's mind, to borrow a I don't know, Buddhist term, I think. So when he gave that explanation, I did not at all yes, fully understandable to somebody who's 6 or 7 years old, but in no way dumbed down.
Right.
I took something away from that, and I'm super thankful for the explanation that he gave. It's something that just put it into perspective for me that I don't think I could have gotten myself to otherwise.
It's always, I guess, impressive to me when there's somebody who is younger than I am, who I feel like just has so much more wisdom than I do, you know, sage wisdom to share. And Victor is one of those guys.
He's got it 100%. Yeah. Well, let's not belabor this, man. Let's hit the, let's roll the tape. Let's hit that play button.
I like answering it in kind of the Platonic fashion. Thomas Aquinas, he has rules for disputation, right? If you ever met with an argument, there are 3 things you must do. Never deny, seldom affirm, and always distinguish. And so the way I like to explain it is this, and I explain it this way to Catholics. I explain it this way to like atheist families. I explain it this way to like just anyone, because I think we could almost all agree with it. And it's this. So there are things in this life that we cannot touch. We know they exist, but we cannot touch them. So things like love, things like justice, things like truth, right? You ask a little kid about fairness, they recognize fairness. Nobody has to teach a kid what's fair, right? So these things exist. We don't know exactly how, but they exist out there. They're outside of us. When we live, there are things that we can touch, right? Like a chair, right? You can touch it with your hand. It's a thing. You can hold it. It's tangible. But there's a part inside of us that can touch those intangible things. And so I would say that part inside of us that recognizes these things we cannot touch is the thing inside of us that we cannot touch. And I would call that the soul. And so at the end of our lives, the physical part of us, we see it die. But the part of him that is intangible, that part we cannot touch, it has to go somewhere. And being that things like love and truth and justice are outside of us, outside of our earthly experience, then I think it makes sense too that our soul then follows those things.
Oh man.
Here's my number 2. We actually, as it turns out, a lot of our episodes in 2023 were 2-parters. So this is the second part of our Chris Gethard episode.
I'm so glad you said second part.
Well, the first part was a total bomb. The first part sucked.
No, I will just maybe I'll reveal it when we get to my number 1 pick.
Okay. So Chris Gethard is an amazing comedian, writer, performer, actor, just multi-talented podcaster, multi-talented guy who I am totally in awe of. And I don't know, serendipitously, maybe we have had 2 opportunities to bring him onto the podcast now, and neither of them we initiated ourselves. I think we've joked about this, like when somebody's trying to get Chris Gethard onto your podcast, you don't say no to that.
100%.
But in this soundbite that I'm going to play back, this is from the second part of our Chris Gethard episode, which is episode 84. You can find it in the show notes. So we were talking about being drawn to our phones, our devices. And this is something that I struggle with. And it's actually something that it's sort of a New Year's resolution. It's a long-term goal that I'm working towards, is just trying to break the instinct to always sort of reach for my phone and just be more present. We were just talking about how when he's playing with his kid, Cal, who I think was 4 or 5 at the time. He's probably 6 now. Chris has those same instincts that I do, and I'm sure you do too, which is like sometimes you got to reach for your phone, and it's either it's for something work related, or your brain tells you I need to scroll social media, and you reach for it. And what is that modeling to our kids? And Chris shares about this notion, this idea, in such a fun way. And so I'm going to play that clip right now. Chris Gethard.
I think part of the rhythm of my social media, checking it in front of my kids, was also established when he was young. And I feel guilty saying this, but another thing I feel bad saying that I don't think people warned me about enough was like, now we're at an age where my son's about to turn 4 and he makes me laugh. He busts my balls in a way that the other day I told him to drink water and he looked at me and went, "I'm already hydrated, dude." And I was like, you are 3.5 years old. Why are you clowning me in a way that's making me actually laugh? You know,
that's great.
But in the early days, like, it can be pretty boring. Like when you're up with a kid at 3:30 in the morning and you're not allowed to make any noise, because the kid's like almost back asleep and is on you, and you can't go back to sleep until the kid's asleep, but you can't fall asleep until they're definitely asleep. Like, yeah, I'm going to have him in my left arm and I might look at Instagram with my right hand. And you get in that rhythm, you know? And even now I have to say, like, for as funny as he is now, like my son really loves playing with Matchbox cars, and it's awesome, and it brings back memories for me. But he's an only child, and he needs someone to play with. And sometimes he'll say to me, Daddy, do you want to play cars? And we've already played cars twice that day. And I can't pretend as a 43-year-old that it's particularly exciting for me to play cars for a third round, for another half hour of like, let's zoom around on the couch cushions making noises with our mouths. And sometimes I might drift off and check my phone in those moments. And he's now old enough to understand, oh, I'm bored, and it hurts his feelings. And that kills me when I give into that instinct to be like, yeah, dude, it's, I hate to say it, but this game is boring, and you're so excited about it. And I can feel how much of an asshole I'm being. And I'm so sorry, but I really needed to know what someone I haven't spoken to until college thinks about The Mandalorian, you know?
Here's the thing that I do to make myself feel better about the fact that I'm scratching my kids' back as they go to sleep with my, as you put it, like with one hand, but my phone, like my phone's in my other hand, rather than mindlessly scrolling through Instagram. I've convinced myself that it's much better that I bought a subscription to the New York Times Games app, and I'm doing like I'm doing spelling bee. I'm doing spelling bee to try to get the fucking panagram, and I've convinced myself that that's a much better thing.
You're exercising your brain. Right. Yeah, it is. It is better.
Yeah,
it is better.
Okay, thanks. Good, validated.
In some small way. Yes, you're getting your phone-based dopamine hit through culture, through the old gray lady.
Right.
All right, where were we, dude? Where were we? Did we get to the number ones? Are these our number ones?
Yeah, man, we're down to number one. Do you want to give your number one clip? I think I already know what it is.
I will.
You sort of spoiled it.
I got a little twist though for you. So speaking of Jamie, on my way out this morning, I said, hey, by the way, Adam and I are going to record an episode. And, she gave me the whole like, oh, you're hanging out with him instead of me again. She gave me that whole thing.
I thought you said you weren't going to be doing that anymore.
Yeah. I said, hey, listen, while you're home today, we're doing this best of recording tonight. I said, just if you have time and you think of like one of the episodes that you really liked, go back and listen to it. See if you can pick a moment, that you think you would sort of consider one of your top favorites.
Sure.
And she picked the same one, the same clip, even not just the same episode, but the same clip that I picked.
Okay.
From episode 83, which is part one of the Chris Gethard episode.
Part one. Yeah. Ooh, I can't wait to hear which one it is.
Yeah. And I think you already even have said the word serendipitous at one point earlier in this episode. So I'm going to use that again. It was quite serendipitous that she and I both chose. This is why it's my number one pick. We were talking a bunch. You had this great question.
Naturally.
About the context of his material. There's really quite a spectrum of his audience, and some of them are very young, and they kind of get the cool, fun, interesting part of, I think he's used the term cutting edge at one point, part of like his material. And yet he's also been able to sort of connect with an older audience a little bit. So we were getting into talking about how the context of his material prior to having kids has sort of shifted after becoming a dad. And his material sort of became, I think he said, like, oh, it's the trope. The comedian goes and has a kid, and all of a sudden his material is now all about his kid and being a dad.
I remember this.
And so he's trying to do the same thing that he did before having Cal, which was find a unique maybe perspective on something. And so we were talking about his finding a unique perspective or a more creative angle. And in that process, he made some revelations, or he sort of came upon some revelations, including, suddenly sort of understanding now that he's a dad, he's learning about becoming a dad. And he's trying to learn this new person, but he's also realizing that he's learning a hell of a lot about his own dad.
Mm-hmm.
And this revelation is this little bit of a story he sort of tells. I just that's something that's come up in this podcast between you and I talking. And it's been one of those things that for me personally has been, it almost sounds silly to say it now, but I didn't expect at all after becoming a parent to suddenly think about or look back on or consider my own parents and what they were going through. I suddenly saw so many things from my upbringing, like my experiences, I suddenly saw from the other angle, and it continues, and I imagine it will continue to continue. And so when he talked about that, it just resonated with me so much, and I've often thought about some of the things that he talked about in that episode. That's why it's my number one pick. What do you say? What do you say we
Let's revisit.
Let's get into it. Chris, come back onto the main stage, would you?
I do have some insecurities about the fact that I was like a very hipster, relevant in Brooklyn for many years. New York press would consistently say that I was cutting edge for years. And now I'm doing something that's very much a trope, which is a comedian has a kid and here comes the kid material. But it's, if I'm going to write from a place of honesty, it's what it's going to be about right now, because it's like my whole life hit this brick wall called fatherhood. And it's a very happy brick wall to hit, but it's a brick wall, all the momentum of everything else stops and at best revolves around it now. So it is what it is. One of the things that's creatively been very compelling to me that shows up a little bit in the Lonely Dad conversations, shows up even more in the stand-up, is understanding my own father a lot more than I ever have. Some things that didn't make sense when they were happening to me, or things that maybe caused me some questioning or anxiety or stress that I look back on now and I go, how weird to be 39 when my son was born and all of a sudden go, wait, I completely get these things that seemed baffling to me 35 years ago, 25 years ago. I get it now. Oh my goodness, that's what it was. He was scared or nervous or flying by the seat of his pants. And how could you ever know that until you're also living it? So that's a side of things that I think is maybe a little less cliche. I think as someone who's like perpetually always felt a little bit like an introvert and lonely, I think a lot of my work over the years is clearly, you look at Beautiful Anonymous, it's me having phone calls with other people. It's me just basically trying to make friends. Like my old public access show that turned into a cable show we took phone calls all the time, and I was just constantly like, if I feel weird, if you're weird, call and we could be weirdos together. So the TLDR, it's like fatherhood infects my work. And within it, I do try to find some angles that other people maybe haven't beaten to death before, and always trying to look for the deeper cut with all my work, to just go, what's the stuff other people aren't thinking about? What's the take on it that other people haven't gotten to yet, that other people wouldn't see?
All right, listen.
What you got? What you got?
I want to share my number one.
I'm intrigued.
Clip. Well, my number one clip is from our recent episode with Pete Souza. Pete is the official White House photographer for the Obama administration, most notably. And in this clip, Pete is telling a great story about what it means to be a leader who demonstrates true empathy in the face of tragedy, and also what it means to him to be the person capturing these moments for the world to see. This concept of empathy in leadership is something that I desperately want my kids to experience and to have modeled for them. It's something I am so hopeful for in 2024. And so this soundbite, this story that he shares about empathy in the face of tragedy, specifically when Obama visited Sandy Hook Elementary School after the terrible massacre there in 2012 really resonated with me. And I'm excited to reshare that small piece of that episode with our listeners now.
One of the things that I always strive to do in my photography, especially during the Obama administration, was to make authentic photographs. I think a photograph can be a powerful document in some ways more so than words. Oftentimes you could see the character of this particular man in not just the way that he went about making decisions, but in the way he interacted with other people, respectfully, as you said, kindly, at times angrily, because we all have those emotions occasionally, right? And understanding, one of the first time that we had a national tragedy when he was president was a shooting at Fort Hood.
Oh, yeah.
In 2009. I think it was towards the end of the year. And I forget how many people were shot and killed, but it was quite a few. And you're suddenly thrust into that situation where, the president flies to a memorial service at Fort Hood. But what people don't see was him having to meet each of the families. What's worse than having somebody in their 20s just be shot and killed, and their life it's over, and then you're the parent, or in some cases the wife, having to meet the president of the United States under these circumstances. Nobody teaches you. There's no 5-point bullet list on, here's what you do when you're president of the United States and you have to go greet families after a national tragedy when a dozen people have been shot and killed. There's no book that tells you how to do this. I could see, I wouldn't say nervousness, but didn't know what to expect, I guess is probably the best way to do it. And learn that, people just wanted to be able to tell the president of the United States about their son or daughter or husband, and maybe show them pictures, and maybe some of them wanted a hug, and Michelle went on that trip as well. That's something that he had to do too many times in his presidency. Newtown, which is highlighted in the doc film, was the worst of them because it involved, 20 first grade kids, and think about what that's done to, 20 different families.
Well, man, I mean, I hope our listeners got a little bit of what I got from this trip down memory lane, which is sort of a renewed sense of what's at stake being a parent, some of the amazing things and examples that are out there for us to all look to for becoming better parents and people,
All of that. And I hope that this has inspired some of you listening to go back and check out those episodes if you didn't hear them the first time around. Again, there are links in our show notes, or you can search for them, search by guest on our website. Just go to the episodes page. You'll find them. Things are easy to find. We've made things very easy for you. Look, 2024 I feel is going to be a great year for Modern Dadhood. I hope that we'll get back to some of those recurring segments that have fallen off a little bit lately, because those are a lot of fun.
They are. Maybe some new ones. Maybe we'll see some new ones this year.
I'm looking forward to meeting some more amazing dads, having some more powerful, funny, genuine conversations. And I am just very excited for what the future holds for this podcast and our listeners.
Do we try to just squeak out a recurring segment at the end of this one?
I have nothing planned, but if you have something at the ready, then let's do it.
I only thought of this about 3 hours ago during a conversation with one of my kids. To me, it sort of fell into the so that's a thing now category.
Perfect.
And let me preface this by saying, I know full well what this says about me as a parent. One of my sons, who will remain nameless, has brought into his regular everyday vocabulary a couple of pretty innocuous, is that the word? Like non-harmful and non-offensive, but yet swear words into his just regular walking around vocabulary.
Like walking around kindergarten?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I'll say this. We were at a party for the new year over at a neighbor's house, and wonderful friends and families in the neighborhood here. We all got together, had a little bonfire, and on more than one occasion, more than one child came running down into the kids. All the kids were upstairs, and they have this little movie room they built. All the kids would come running down and come up to me, and they would say my son's name, and they would say, "He said hell," or they would come and say, they would say, "He keeps saying damn." And they just kept tattling on him. And so it was funny, but it was also a little bit like, I think we've crossed into this point where he's like saying these words and it's not even, it's just become like almost habitual, you know? And even tonight, this is why I thought of it, is I'm standing there at the kitchen table. He's already taken his bath. He's got his PGs on. My other son's upstairs brushing his teeth. Like we're off to, and I don't even know what we were doing. I think I was saying something about I didn't eat dinner tonight because I worked in the office today, got home a little bit late. And we're just having a little conversation about that. And he's drops something as he's talking to me, and he's, damn. And he goes and he picks it up. And I said, dude, come on, man. We've talked about this, like, and then literally like 30 seconds later, we're just back to talking about something. And he's just telling a story about being at school. And he was like, and then I was like, damn. I was like, dude, you gotta be more aware. Like, 'cause it really doesn't bother me all that much, but coming face to face with this realization that it's like, it's just this habitual, it's just this part of his language. Like, it's not that he's like, tee-hee, I said a bad word. It's like,
he's not even thinking about it.
Not even thinking about it at all, which that's where you get into trouble, you know, I think at school when I think he's, to this point, up until this point, I would have said he's pretty cognizant of the fact that some words are words that maybe me and mommy are sort of okay if those words are used in the right context, but that they can be harmful and they can be hurtful to people if you use them the wrong way, when you kind of refer to them as like ugly words, when they're there. And there's a lot that goes into that category that are not swear words, calling someone stupid. We refer to that as an ugly, word. And, I think he's pretty well aware of that for the most part, but it seems as if perhaps he's gotten to the point where he's just not even really realizing that he's using some of these words regularly. And so I think perhaps the so that's a thing now is that any minute we're probably going to get a call
from the teacher who approached him and said, "You can't say damn." Yeah. And he responds with, "Well, what the hell do you want me to say then?"
Well, why the hell not?
That's a thing now in the Check It house.
Yeah.
It's just gone a little too far.
Yep.
Hard to reel it back in.
If any of the teachers listening, I apologize. We're working on it.
I guess we should probably go into the end credits. As we said at the top, visit moderndadhood.com to find all of our episodes, to learn more about Mark and myself, to buy someone you care about, or to buy yourself a Modern Dadhood t-shirt or a dad hoodie, nice comfy zip hoodies.
Can I just stop you right there?
Please.
You got the boys an amazing gift. Adam I was on the couch And suddenly, ding dong, who's at my front door? It's
Santa
Adam.
Claus.
It's
Dropped in
Adam
unannounced.
Flaherty. He's got a little bag that says Happy Holidays, and he's got this gift for my kids, and I didn't get anything at all, FYI, by the way, for his kids, and they were awesome little Modern Dadhood sweatshirts, and one of my sons in particular has worn the shirt more times than we've been able to wash it so far. Like, it's become an immediate favorite in the drawer.
Nice.
So again,
Don't wash
thank
it
you.
because the ink will come off immediately.
Is that cheap, huh?
Yeah, the iron on things don't usually last that long.
It was an awesome gift, and thank you again, dude.
You're welcome, man. You're welcome. I'm glad they like them. I'm glad they fit.
They fit wonderfully. They look great.
Tell them about social media.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, that's what I was going to say. You can find us and the show in places like Instagram, Facebook, though I'm pretty sure in 2024, I'm not going to set foot on Facebook even once. I think it's fully behind me now.
It's not worth it.
I dabbled maybe a handful of times in 2023. Not so in 2024, but the show is there. And if that's your jam, you can find us there. LinkedIn,
TikTok.
TikTok?
Yeah, man, we're on TikTok.
There you go. It's a
I've been
question.
posting.
I love it. It's my favorite. You can find us on all of those platforms by searching for Modern Dadhood. You talked about dad hoodies and sweatshirts. Did you tell them about our email address, which is hey, HEY, at moderndadhood.com. You can email us, or you can use the form on the website to reach out to us. And
subscribe to the mailing list.
Subscribe to the mailing list.
Subscribe
write in.
to the podcast.
That would be great. That would be huge. You can write in and tell us what you like about the show, and give us ideas. This is the beginning of a new year. So if you've got some thoughts, you say to yourself, I've been listening to this show since its inception some 90 odd episodes ago. You know what they haven't touched on yet? XYZ.
Wait to fill in the blank.
You fill that in. That's the point. That's what I'm saying. You fill that in the note that you're writing to us, and we'll consider it.
We'll consider it.
We will.
We might respond.
Maybe. I won't. Adam might.
Thank you to all of our guests this past year.
Oh, yeah.
It has been great meeting you and getting to know you. Thank you to Casper Babypants and Spencer Albee for the music in our podcast. It wouldn't be what it is without that music. Thank you to Pete Morse at Red Vault Audio for making us sound as good as we do. Learn about Pete's services, audio production and post-production services at redvaultaudio.com.
And last but certainly not least by any stretch of the imagination is thank you for listening.
Podcast. Just a modern.